How does your head feel this morning?
Ah,
All right. And the circle as I see it is Jake, Roland, Sandra, Becca, Linda, Heather, and then April. So Jake, over to you. A quick hello, and
okay.
how does your head feel?
Not so good. I have woke up with a sore throat this morning, and actually I woke up at 3:30 this morning, so I'm not really 100% right now. So, but um, my head has had some happy thoughts though. Even the way it is, it's got some happy thoughts because I was very deeply encouraged by last night, and I'm glad this is being recorded because I mean I would be able to go for the whole session. And but this is something I want to catch up on because I don't understand the Miro board, and so it'd be wonderful to I'll hang in there as long as I can to understand it because wow, this is very cool. And I love your excitement about it, so I want to see what that's about. Thank you.
I think I was thinking maybe your son would be really interested in the Miro board and could help you figure out um, how to navigate it because it's
Mm,
really cool.
cool.
And I have a headache this morning, and um, and I think maybe because the there's a lot going on in my head. We had a good, a really interesting on all sorts of different levels conversation after the circle the last night. All sorts of different types of conversations actually, and that was really nice. And circle was really interesting for me last night also because of I was going through ebbs and flows during the circle, and just being able to witness that. So my head is both sore and buzzy at the same time. So over to that's why I was thinking, how does your head feel? Because mine is a little sore. Over to Sandra.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here from Salt Spring Island. I have my camera off and on because it's pet feeding time and then after feeding, and anyway, they keep calling me away. So, and I had other farm duties last night, so I couldn't be there at the opening, but I'm glad to be here this morning and I'm feeling pretty good. And Miro board, I've had experience. I did a 6-week workshop last fall where we used the Miro board, and it's really powerful tool. So I look forward to exploring how you've used it here because every application is different. Um, and that's all for now. Over to Becca.
Hi, my head feels fine. I slept in. I mean, not super late, but late for me. And got in a couple hours on my novel editing this morning that I'm doing on my draft, and haven't gotten outside or gotten any exercise. So I'm gonna probably turn off my screen so I can do some stretching and stuff while I listen and watch. Over to Linda.
Well, I've my head feels fine. I woke up with foot cramps. I'm up in the mountains in South Lake Tahoe right now, which is quite a shift from where I usually am. We went from the desert to the mountains, and so I got in late, so I missed the meeting last night. Sorry, I would have enjoyed that, I'm sure. Did you record that meeting? Can I listen to it? Oh, good. That'll be fun. So I've done a little bit with the Miro board, but I'm certainly not a master of it, so I will appreciate a refresh. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what we're going to do together. I forget who follows me. I'm sorry.
Heather.
You're all,
And
Heather.
that's me. That's me. I woke up this morning with a really bad headache and neck ache, and my head very full from last night, which was wonderful. So I'm reminded of the gift my grandson gave me for Christmas, cheeky he is, and it's a mug that says, "If you're happy and you know it, it's your meds." So I thought, yeah, okay, this is maybe a med day. I stretch it out a lot and only take it if I really don't want to be in pain. So this is a combination of me, the meds kicking in, the fabulous coffee I have here, and thank you for the grounding, Ben. What I did with the grounding was really empty my head so that I'm open for what is happening today. And I've never experienced a Miro board, so this is going to be new, and I'm looking forward to it. And it's over to you, April.
Well, my head is fine, but not totally functioning yet. My energy band in the morning doesn't happen for another while yet, so I'll look forward to that kicking in. I myself am in love with Miro as well, and have used it fairly extensively with a number of different projects. And I'm a visual learner, and I love diagrams, graphs, and of course asset mapping. So Miro appeals to me on many levels. So I'm looking forward to the next little while, and happy to be here with all of you. And over to Ben.
My head is marshmallowy, so it's stuffy, squishy. So I think it sounds like there's a similar kind of haze among the group, and that's just fine. And actually, we don't have this heavily scripted. We're really leaning into the process. Actually, even yesterday when we were sort of refining some of the details, we were realizing this is just what we do, right? Actually, there's a form of circle where we kind of lean into the circle itself. We know that it's about asking a couple good questions, and really the cycle of the circle just, it takes on its own energy. And so the same goes for today, and we're not going to we'll cover the agreements quickly before we get to work at 10:30, but just to say take care of yourself. And so what Becca was saying, what I encourage everyone to do, if you want to close, turn your screen off and stretch, or if you need to take a bio break, or whatever you need to kind of accommodate yourself, that's all good. And this first part is going to be a lot of information out and just questions for clarification. So you can just sort of sit passively and absorb it. And actually, we're not even going to be using the Miro interactive functionality a lot today. It's really we're using the Miro as, it's like our lobby space. It's the lobby where we put up all of the brown paper stuff, the posters that we're working on that remind us of what we're doing. So it's really when in terms of walking people through, I want to just kind of show you, here are some resources. Like April was saying, there's some graphs, some images, some lists, all sorts of things that you can come back to. And we're hoping that, over 2024, this Miro board stays active, and it becomes, if you have a question, go take a look at the Miro board and see if that even gets you in the right place. I think that's it in terms of housekeeping. Does anyone else have any kind of housekeeping stuff that they want to get out of the way? Just raise your hand if you got anything. All right, cool. So I put the link to the Miro board in the chat, and it's also, we've tried to populate it everywhere so that it's easy to find. And at the high level, can everyone see the board now? at the high level, think of it, it's just a big electronic wall where all of these white bits, they call them frames, but I think that it'd be better to call them brown sheets of paper. You know, that's all of these are just kind of different workspaces that we put together. And in the upper left-hand corner, and it's an infinite space. So you can kind of scan out and back and around. And the tricky part for Miro is getting lost sometimes, that, you know, if you can't find your way. But for those kinds of navigation things, in the upper left-hand corner of all of the boards, we have our process starting point. So we've laid out the process. Before, it was about the sessions that we did, the 3 different online sessions and then the guild sessions. And now it's focused on the charrette schedule. But basically, the upper left-hand corner is your one-stop shop for where to get started, how to get oriented. And we've included, the Miro has put together this little 3-minute video. So there's a link that you can click on, and it tells you all the basics of how to navigate, how to add a post-it note, all that kind of stuff. So if you just want the quick how to engage with the board, the Miro link, that Miro video is right there. And this is out of date. This actually, I think anyhow, they have a wonderful feature called Talk Track. And basically it allows me to record, or anyone to record, a video that walks you through the board, and it actually takes you around and sort of brings your focus to the different boards. And so probably later today, it's super easy to record. I'll just record something so that basically what I'm talking to you about today, it'll get recorded so anyone can click on that and get a walkthrough on the board. So anytime you see these little boxes with the play button, it's basically kind of a walking guide of, you know, what's on the board. And and while we're here, I did want to mention we've made a tiny adjustment to the schedule. So tomorrow morning, rather than starting with the guild's work time, we're going to actually start with a morning circle. So we'll do what our normal farm circle, but we'll do it online. So we can virtually take part in that circle. So we thought it was more important to have more circle time than the guild time. So just that little update there. In terms of the boards, I think I'm going to do it this way. So we've got the process space here, and then below it, there is a space where you can ask any questions that you might have. So, oops, pay no attention to that. If you have any questions at any time, you can just grab a Post-it note and stick it on here, and we'll make sure that we look at it whenever we're coming to the board. And then we have some our agreements, which we'll go over, and the 7 principles of sociocracy. Likewise, there's a space if you have any concerns, questions about them, there's a space where you can add Post-it notes there. We also have a little bit of an emerging history of the timeline of the Lifeboat Academy, and all of the iterations that it's gone through on the various farms and some of the activities that have happened along the way. So, and that's if you have been involved in the project and you have some other events that you can remember, again, just grab a Post-it and throw it in there. And then we have some of the summary results from this year. We've been trying to move towards, obviously our goal is to create social impact as part of our bottom line. And so we've been trying to be rigorous about how we are thinking about the positive impact that we're having and how we can track it. And so this year we've done a little bit in that direction. So we've been trying to gather the activities that we've engaged in. So we just have some stats in here. We use Asana, which is a project management app, as a way of recording what we're working on, who's doing what, and how it's getting done. So we have some statistics about the number of projects we've taken on and the tasks we've done and the kinds of things that we've worked on. And also the tensions that we've resolved. We track those and I will say everything here is emerging. Everything here is a moving target. So we also have a process in place where we can identify and address tensions as they arise. And they can be anything from how do we deal with storage space in the kitchen to how do we communicate effectively about what the circle's all about, or how do we deal with, addressing investor concerns. Like it can be anything that is something that we need to figure out. And so we've got a process where that can happen. And some record of the tensions that we've dealt with. And we've also done a lot of work on social media. And so Ronnie did some great research, and we've set things up. We being Ronnie has set things up so that in doing the research on the social media activity, they discovered about how some of the tools that we're using, by leaning into them, we actually get good data back about what we're doing. So there's that. And there's a blank space here where there should be financial information, and we're still in the process of putting that together. And it's just a matter of, it's been, one is, as everyone knows, I have administrivia phobia. And so I have emotional reactions when balance sheets are involved, when I am responsible for the balance sheet. So that's been a little bit of a delay, but mostly it's just because we're trying to pull information from a bunch of different sources. And the bookkeeping part of it, how do you categorize this thing and how do you categorize that thing, that kind of stuff. So anyhow, but those results are there, and we'll try to populate that. And then we have the record of the different activities that we've gone through. So the first thing that we did was gathering lessons learned, and we had a chance to think about and share our stories of resilience and regeneration. And what is it that allows us to, what's the 20 that gets us 80 in doing this work? And we did a little processing, and that's the Venn diagrams about how these connect. And we already had guiding principles, and we used that experience to update and refine our guiding principles. And we found that they were largely affirming. And so the guiding principles are encoded in our driver statement for the Lifeboat Academy. And it's important. Frequent reminders is one of our agreements. And so it's worth anchoring in that the stuff that we really pulled out of that was number one with a bullet, I think, or at least for me, is we treat all projects as experiments, and we treat all of our work as a series of experiments that are enabling us to try what we think will work. We do the best we can. We come up with the plan that we think is going to have the best impact, but we do it in a way that we can measure if we're effective or not. And we can use that feedback to get smarter and more effective at what we're doing. And I think in the same way that involves leaning into, we are part of a larger intelligence. And that is both, we are part of a larger human intelligence. So how do we create opportunities where what we already know collectively can be front and center, so that we're using the full intelligence that we have collectively among our humanity, but also that we are connected into more than that. And that's where biomimicry comes in, recognizing that there is intelligence far greater than ours. And so it's worth us to tap into that, to the extent possible. And we treat the farm, the land, as an organism composed of organs. That's partly sociocracy, it's partly biomimicry, it's partly re-indigenizing our relationship to the land. And because we know relationships are the key to everything, and trust is basically the glue that holds relationships together. So we really, we put front and center the value and importance of developing trusting relationships. And part of that is accountability, and showing up when you say you're going to show up, and and creating space where there's reciprocity. And then also, I think as part of, I think of this a little bit as re-indigenization and anti-capitalism is, you know, time is not money. That is a lie. Time is something else. And time and things take time, and you can't push a rope, which is April's one of my favorite April bumper stickers. And that's I think there's a level of kindness in that to ourselves and all our relations, that we're allowing space and time for things to develop. And it also relates to relationships. So I think it's probably best if I just push through the whole thing and give you the overview, because everything builds on everything else. And then we'll have lots of time for questions, because we don't really have that much more to do. Once we did our lessons learned, we thought about what is the Lifeboat Academy as an organism. And so we thought through the kind of the key product of this are the guilds. So what are the different functional areas that what are the functions that we need to perform as an organism? And who are the guilds that will, you know, take on those functions? And we came up with our 5 guilds. So heart work and philosophy, which is really about the inner work, you know, and the healing process. And I think in our guild meeting, we kind of came to, it's about the worldview. It's about that orientation that we have to the work and to each other. And how do we anchor that in, connect that, grow that. The guild 2 is principles and governance, which is, you know, we need to have effective ways of making decisions together. We've talked in the circle a lot about equity and fairness. And this is how do we make sure that we are using tools that can be as anti-oppressive as we are capable of, and that are also capable of improving as we learn. So how do we put in a governance system that also is adaptable and gets smarter as we get smarter? The 3rd guild is the finance and legal guild, the brains of the operation. And it's the brains in terms of the frontal lobe, you know, planning and asset management and, you know, risk assessment and taking on those responsibilities and coordinating the flow of resources throughout the organism. And then the 4th guild is the beating heart of actually, it's the muscles and bone of the organization, but it's the farm itself and the food production and the physical resources necessary to keep body and soul together. And so there's a lot of activity. The guilds look like evenly sized bubbles, but if we were to scale them to the amount of work, then most of the organism would be the farm, food, and housing guild. And then the other ones are playing kind of more supportive roles. But like any organ in any organism, they are all essential roles. They're all equally important. But there's just going to be a lot more activity in the farm, food, and housing. And then the 5th guild is outreach and network. And that is thinking really about how do we reach beyond the organism and maintain that interconnected network of lifeboats. Thinking about what we're doing here in the Spalding Valley as the anchor to the fleet of lifeboats distributed around the world. And so in thinking about that, we thought about the interconnections and the interdependencies. So it's not just one organ, but how do the resources flow from organ to organ and into the organism and beyond the organism? And so this is a, you know, we're trying to give a visual representation of how we think the resource flow happens. So, you know, starting on the left, we have 3 main inputs right now. These are what we're defining as our key inputs, which are relationships with investors, farm stays, guests who come and go, and farm partners, people that have more of an enduring relationship. And And they are all bringing resources with them. Roland had this great image of, you know, in the soil food web, the trees put out exudates, and that creates this inviting environment where the allies of the trees, the mycelia and the bacteria, do their thing, where they're coming in with little packets of what the tree needs, and there's a sort of a transformation where some of those packets are left behind and other packets are picked up. And so there are these little packets of relationships, knowledge, resources, money, and energy that people are coming in with and leaving behind in different ways as they come through the organism. And then we do our magic here, whatever that might be. And then on the far side, what we produce is knowledge, relationships, healing, food, and transformation. And that's, you know, at the high level, what we are trying to do. And it's also recognizing that in nature, there is no waste. So the goal is for us to create what we create, to offload what we offload, and for it to exist in that cycle where eventually there's a regenerative return, and what we produce and put out into the environment is transformed into the inputs that we need to continue to do that work. And so that was, I don't know where this came from, and that's one of the reasons I love it, but this phrase, we take care of the land to heal the people, and we heal the people to take care of the land, really for me landed that, like, why is there the Lifeboat Academy? Why is there a farm here on Spalding Valley? And it's really so we can bring people in to deepen their relationship to all our relations, and then send them back out where they can plant that seed, you know, wherever they happen to be. So really this diagram is kind of it's our model that we're working with. And so then we did some work where we looked at we broke down, we thought about what our long-term goals are, and we broke them down into short-term goals that we think we could approach this year. And then we divvied them up by guild, because in sociocracy, in the model, the work really happens at the guild level. The guilds are where, you know, the action takes place. And then at the coordination circle, which we'll demonstrate this afternoon, that's where we integrate what happens between the guilds. And so one of the things that we sorted everything by guild collectively, and then I just repurposed it as a Venn diagram to try to portion out the different goals and where there's overlap, just to try to make that a little bit easier to understand. And again, all of this is basically the groundwork that allows us to come up with the driver statements, and that's what we're going to be really focusing on for today. Is and we, in terms of the overall process, we come together collectively, and we did our reflection on last year, our lessons learned, our guiding principles, and our high level where we want to go. And then in sociocracy, that gets delegated out to the guilds, who are then responsible for refining and turning it into an action plan. And then there's always a relationship back and forth between the whole, the organism and the organs. So, but we do it in a way that makes it easier for groups to kind of know what is expected of them and what they have to work with, and go off and do that work. And so this last week, we had meetings of each of the guilds to kind of go through the driver statement, which is, think of it as the agreement between the whole and the guild. So as the Lifeboat Academy, the driver statement is saying, hey, Heart, Work, and Philosophy, this is what we think you're up to, and how we think you relate to the other guilds, and run with that. Is that clear? And of course, it goes back and forth, because it's always iterative, and we're making sure that we're using words that make the same sense on both sides. But really, the focus of today is going to be going through. So what we did this week is the guilds met. They went over the driver statements and then started to brainstorm really what should be the focus then for 2024. And we have that's what we'll be talking about at 10:30 is what each of the guilds think the focus area is. And then this afternoon, we'll be coordinating that and thinking about, okay, are we balanced here? Are these realistic goals? Do they fit with each other? And we'll talk through like how do we integrate these different groups so that we maximize innovation and agency, and we minimize potential conflict. And that pretty much brings us to the end of the board. So if you, and actually, no, I'm saving the best for last. So in terms of the other activity we're going to do today is really just it's meant to be a fun, light thing, is we're having a badge art gallery, and badges each guild develops their own badges. And badges are basically associated with skills that are necessary to be part of the guild. And it becomes our education model. So every skill is demonstratable through some activity. And there's a badge associated with that. And you can decide which badges you'd like to earn. And then you earn them by shadowing people who already know how to do them. And then being shadowed until everyone is satisfied that you know the process, and then you become a peer in that badge, and then you can show other people, etc. And anyhow, so as part of that, for some fun, we've listed some of the possible badges that we've talked about so far, and all of them, ideally will have just like in the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, a little, maybe a little fabric badge that you can earn. We can even have sashes. So the question is, what should they look like? And basically anything is safe. You could just take a pencil and some paper and draw something and take a picture of it with your phone. Or if you like working with the Canva or Microsoft Paint or anything like that, feel free. And, as long as you can make a JPEG of it, you can post it on the board. And so this afternoon, we're hoping that we'll have a little arts and crafts time, and people can show off their ideas for badges. So, but then the last thing is the Kumu board, which one of the things that I love about Miro is you can actually embed another website. So you can click on and view the asset map. Actually, I should do a before and after. So what we did, if you were in, I think it was session 2, we did this. So this was, we just started to brainstorm what is the landscape that we are working in? What are all of the things that we need to know or be aware of to create a model of resilience and regeneration? And the blue are sort of theories of practice, knowledge bases, ways of thinking about things. The green are specific practices that techniques, skills that you need to actually use in a room. The dark pink are organizations, the light pink are individuals, and we didn't really have any projects. But we took this and then we put it all together along with some other similar exercises that we'd done previously. And we came up with our Kumu map, which is a special piece of software that actually allows us to map relationships at different levels. And it has these really cool features where you can click on any one of them. Like let's click on sustainable economics and say, well, what's related to this? And you can look at all the connections of sustainable economics. And then you could click on the next one, which is the gift economy, and say, okay, well, what's connected to that? And you can change the focus and just move around. But what I think is the most fun part is this is our network at the moment. So this is just what we've been able to map out in a few of those exercises. And you can see we have this satellite of all these little red dots are individuals or groups that we know are interested in these topics, are working in this area, but we haven't directly connected with yet. And so for me, that's part of, or we haven't connected them in the map. We've connected with them a little bit in reality, but we haven't put them on the map yet. So part of the fun is, you know, sort of thinking about how we can map people in. So that's basically the board. And now there's also, if you have any ideas for coffee break conversations, you don't need to put them here, but if you have any, you can grab a Post-it and throw them in there. And I think thus endeth the lesson. And awesome. Thanks, Roland. I just saw in the chat the Wet'suwet'en and the heal the people and heal the land. So that's where that comes from. Anyhow, this is that's the overview. And now I think we'll just do popcorn style. Do people have any questions? And you might need to raise your hand. I can see some people. Becca?
Yeah, just a technical question. Is that if we go into the Kumu asset map through the Miro board, can we manipulate it and, I mean, go through those different views that you showed us, or?
Yeah, I think I'm still checking this out, but I think you can change all of the views, but you can't change any of the content. So you can click. I was just doing this right from this screen where I was right clicking and using the controls.
If I do it like this, does that change it for everybody?
I don't know. Try it.
I am trying it.
Okay.
No, it's not. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure how the embed works. So, but is it changing for you? You can see it?
Yeah.
Cool. That's very cool. And we can also share the link to the actual map, because I think it would be fun to have people start to make their own connections. And it's pretty simple. Once you have it together, you can add connections very easily. Any other questions, comments, observations?
When you say anyone can change it, that seems chaotic a little bit to me until, well, I guess maybe I just need a little bit more background. I mean, you wouldn't want any one of us to come up and eliminate things, or in other words, if this was produced by the group, shouldn't the group make the change? Maybe
the software has version control. So we know we can just see what's added, what's deleted, and basically restore it. So and the other thing too is the only people that would have access to it would be people that get the link specifically. So we can control it at that level. And I believe we can even control what people can do. You know, if you join the board, I think that there can be like you can add but not delete kinds of controls. But at this point, I think it's just controlling who has access to the board, and then, you know, you know, basically we don't want people that we wouldn't feel comfortable with the kinds of additions that they would make working there. But you can't, if you make a mistake, it's not a big deal. We can always recover it.
I don't know if you noticed, as you were talking about the inputs, I accidentally dragged the rectangle, and then I was like, oop, hit undo, Control Z is my friend. So
yeah. Well, and the other thing too with the Miro board is we can lock down. I was in making some changes, and so I didn't lock things down, but you can also lock down the Miro board so that people don't accidentally drag the wrong thing. Other questions, April?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that one of the things that's behind the birth of this whole visualization in all these different areas is I think trying to use technology appropriately and to harness it to our needs, so that if there's stuff that's way too complex to just do on paper and pencil or simply verbally, then looking for a tool that lets the different layers, the complexity, and the visual representation of a lot of stuff that's actually relational or notional, that allows that to be seen. And I'm really happy to see all of these tools used in this way, because it puts human intelligence kind of first and then adds on all the other ways of showing how we can do things as a secondary thing. So we're not driven by the fact that we, are just lost in Miro and want to only do that, and as if it's an endless video game. This is
Speak for yourself.
Ben might be of that bent, but and I am a little bit, I have to say, but within the bounds of good organizational management. But this does help to it also helps to show how the principles can underlie what it is that we do. So the layering kind of our activities can be shown in this way. And I think it can be quite elegant, invitational, colorful, and we can all play in the sandbox. It is a sandbox, really. And I think that keeping a playful element to our work pulled us on always. So that's why I really like this way of doing things. And as things come up, you just create another box to put stuff in and then decide how you're going to show it. So I look forward to what's going to happen if we have more contributors to this over the next year as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think building on that, it also demonstrates how do we combine together our strengths in such a way that our weaknesses become irrelevant. And it's like, I have fun geeking out about this kind of mapping, and hopefully it's useful in some way to other people, but I'm willing to kind of do that dive into figuring out, clicking the wrong button and what does this actually mean? And then I can show it to people. And, and then, and likewise, I think if we look at the bigger map, I've already started playing with, well, what are the links between here and something else? And you look at it and you think, well, actually something's missing because we have this other thing and actually that's connected. Ideas are connected, like when you start thinking about mental and social health and facilitation, there's like these connections between some facilitation techniques and, increasing health. So anyhow, yeah, I think it gives us the tools to start to make tangible some of those connections and ask the what if questions too, which is, so it is keeping it all functional. Like, how does it help? How does it actually let us do this work more easily? Linda, yeah.
One other question that just popped up for me. Do you have one chart just on overall goals, either for the year or just project goals?
Yeah, there's two that are goals. So this is the goals. There's actually multiples that are goals. So this is the goals divided up among the guilds. And then we started with a form of the goals. And there's also an archives off to the right. These are kind of the things that have evolved into the other things that I talked about. So we actually started off by the way our articles of incorporation are currently structured. These the columns down on the left are the social impacts that we are committed to performing on. And then the far right column are some of our 10-year goals that we've established as kind of part of the 10-year experiment. Okay. And then the column in the middle were our short-term goals for, what we think we could do or focus on this year. And again, we envision this as, evolving over time, that, that we can refine those 10-year goals and keep slotting in, this year goals. So yeah, there's and likewise, we did the same thing with resources. We did an inventory of both all of our physical technology, process, and information materials, assets. And we also map those into the guilds. So the driver statement covers the main function, the short-term and long-term goals, the resources available, the members of the guild, and the interdependencies with the other guilds. And we'll go over all of that shortly.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So right now, I'm not sure, Jake, do we want to cover that? Right now, that Jake has a question about privacy and names. And I would say these are all people that have expressed interest in what we're doing and expressed interest in those things, and there's no contact information associated with it. At this point, I don't, and one of the principles of sociocracy is transparency unless there is a reason for confidentiality. And so I think if anyone can think of a reason why some of this information might be confidential, bring it forward. But in the spirit of transparency, these are all public people who have expressed their interest in what's going on. And I don't think there's anything that would be, a privacy concern. But we're open to that. If there is a reason for it, then we can figure out how to screen the information. But at this point, that hasn't come up. Any other questions, comments, observations? Well, cool.
It's really helpful to see. It's really helpful to see the archives actually. Just having missed the process that led to the development of the driver statement, it's nice to see all that work and some of the details.
Yeah, and that's this is now kind of the third step, I think, because we did the initial work of taking the 10-year goals and making them 1 year, and then we sorted them into guilds, and we did that, and then that got translated into it became clear as we were talking through the guilds that it was impossible to kind of say this is one guild's goal or another guild's goal. So that gave rise to the rows as a response for how to sort that out. And then everything is coded into the, to the driver statement. So this is I did a short form just to make it easier to see. To read, so it's not a full document on the Miro board, but there is a link at the top to the actual driver statements for each of the guilds, where all of that information can be, as much detail as the guild wants in there, as feels necessary, then that's a place for it.
So I guess I have a quick question, because I didn't attend the initial putting all of this together. So I really want to now read through it all. So when I'm not online with you, how do I get the link to it? And I'm going to have to look at that little 3-minute thing so I know how to navigate. But
on our website, we have a website and we have events, and it will one way or the other, it will be available multiple places. We'll probably make it available on the help desk. Actually, no, we will make it available on the help desk. It just isn't there yet. It will be available through the website, and we frequently reference it anytime we send out information around it. So on our website, on the events section, we've got the schedule for the charrette, and we've got the Zoom link and the Miro board link.
Gotcha.
So, and it's a perpetual link. So once you have the link, you could also save it as one of your favorites or whatever, star it in your browser. And that link will always work.
Great, thank you.
Other questions?